Well, hey there guys, Conceptual Concept 6.9 here in the beautiful Pacific Northwest. And in a world of tariffs and sanctions hitting our 7.62x39 ammo, you all know I'm a huge AK shooter. It's my main go-to rifle still to this day. But ammo prices have gone up. We've lost a lot of manufacturers over the last few years that are producing affordable 7.62x39s. I think I can speak for all of us where we want affordable, domestically produced 7.62x39. Now, I did a review on AAC's steel cased ammo before. I'll go ahead and post a card up here of that. General gist was it was pretty lackluster. It was not great ammo. I could not recommend it to my followers compared to the stuff that's available right now like Tela. But AAC has come out with a newer cartridge for 7.62x39 that looked to show some promise, so I went ahead, I bought a case of it after doing my 7.62x39 ammo review, so I'll post that here again. Shameless plug for my own content here. But I decided to get that case, run through it. I have made it through 1,000 rounds now. I've shot it through 5 different rifles and pistols and 3 different platforms. So let's get into it. So let's start with the specs. So the specs are, it is a 122 grain Hornady produced and designed projectile. So the projectile at the very least is going to have a lot less issues than a lot of the case separation issues of AAC's other ammo. Hopefully they fixed that by now, but they had been having some problems with that. But Hornady is making this, so should alleviate a little bit of those concerns for most people. So next is that it is advertised at 3375 feet per second. All their 7.62x39 is advertised at that, and none of it performs at that level out of a 16-inch barrel, but there is variation. So the steel case from my review was almost 200 feet per second slower than advertised. It was running like 21 to low 2200 feet per second out of a 16-inch barrel. How does this do? This is running out of a 16-inch barrel about 3304 to 3305. So it is much closer to that advertised velocity. And a lot of people say it's because they measure through the chrono out of a 20-inch barrel. I think that's dishonest for most ammo companies to do, but you know, it's regular practice. I wish they'd go to the regular barrel length, the standard barrel length that most people are shooting out of using these cartridges, which would be a 16-inch. But this performed way closer. Both the Saber and the steel case, the previous steel case, performed way lower on the velocity scale. So they're all advertised at the same velocity. Not all of them perform at that velocity, but this does do well. So 70 feet per second, lower than advertised velocity, I'll take it. Now last, they have the Saber Slick, God, this is cringe, the Saber Slick silver casing. So leave it to the gun industry to make the most cringe names and acronyms. Talking to you, Bad Lever. But the casing is supposed to be very slick, help on extraction and insertion, chambering, right? And I have found that to be the case. I've shot 1,000 rounds through this and it has been running incredibly reliably. No malfunctions out of all 5 guns, including the SIG Rattler. My buddy SIG Rattler was having issues with quite a few different types of ammunition, and we slapped that sucker in there and it ran like a top. So does seem to work there. Now let's get into the accuracy. I'm going to insert a clip from my ammo test and then we'll go ahead and discuss it past that. The next up on the list is the zinc coated, I believe they say they're Hornady projectile bullets, or AAC. Let's see how this does. Let's start with the MCX. So I don't quite know what's going on here. The MCX really seem to like this ammo. However, this is a group of 1. It's the best group out of everything tested today. However, the consistency is arguably one of the worst at 115.1 extreme spread and 43.3 average deviation. So not great consistency out of here. So it might have just been the starters aligned and the 5 rounds connected. So take it with a grain of salt, all right? All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and try out some of this zinc ammo out of the AK, see how we do. So next up is the silver-coated AAC ammo out of the AK. Again, not incredibly great. It is grouping middle of the pack on the AK, however, it's not great again. So 4.8 MOA, 64.2 extreme spread, and 23 average deviation or standard deviation. So not incredibly impressive, but not terrible either. It's also average velocity is fairly respectable. So as you saw, the accuracy out of the MCX was 1.6 MOA. That was actually the most accurate group I got out of any ammo, period. So it got really good accuracy results out of that. The Bulgarian AK didn't seem to like it. It got 4.8 MOA, which was kind of back middle of the pack. That barrel's starting to get shot out though. But it was performing well out of the American-made gun. Some people have speculated in the comments that it might be because they're using a 308 projectile and US-made barrels might be using a 308 bore. If you don't know, standard 7.62 by 39 has a 311 bore and a 311 projectile. So that might be why it liked the American-made barrel so much and shot so well out of it. Also, you saw the average velocity was much closer to advertised versus the other two AAC offerings. And another thing I want to note is it did have a pretty extreme spread on one of the groups. It was over 100 feet per second. Second one was 60. The standard deviation still wasn't great. It was in the 30s to 40s, which is fine for, you know, plinking ammo and stuff like that, but it might not be my go-to, like, you know, shooting for accuracy or, you know, loading all my shit hit the fan mags with. But it performed pretty well. Now, last thing I want to note on the accuracy, I have noticed that my AAC, my standard ammunition, I'll insert a picture up here somewhere, this bullet seating depth was really spotty. It was inconsistent, and a lot of people think that might be part of why you're getting such a velocity difference. And I can't say the same for the silver. I'm just going to call it silver casing because that's super cringe. But the silver casing. This stuff has had a pretty consistent bullet seat depth. Now, there is sometimes a little bit of variation, but it's not glaring. And you'll even see that with, you know, PMC X-Tac ammunition. You'll see a little bit of depth variation, which is fine. It's when it's getting really bad that it gets bad, right? But all in all, actually, I hate to say it because personally I'm not a huge fan of Palmetto as a company, but the AAC silver cased ammunition does seem to be good to go after this 1,000 rounds. I'm planning to buy more cases in the future just because it's fairly affordable, it's always available, and it's decent ammo. So again, I've been a very heavy critic of Palmetto, and I will continue to be so, but this ammo seems to be pretty solid. I think they made some good choices on the casing coating. They made really good choices choosing to put Hornady in charge of making the projectiles, and it seems to just be a solid ammo, and it's under 500 bucks for a case. I'd say get it. It's good stuff. But that's about all I got for you guys today. I'll talk to you next time. Don't forget, go outside, touch grass, eat ass. All right, guys?